That's Nelson Riddle and his orchestra with the iconic theme to Route 66, the TV series that ran on CBS from 1960 to 1964. Produced by Herbert Leonard and with incredible scripts by Sterling Siliphant. I was too young to catch the show in its original run, but I discovered it on home video, and I was immediately struck by the cinematic scope of the program, the high quality of the storytelling, and the two leads, George Maharis as the street-smart Buzz Murdoch, and Martin Milner as the thoughtful Todd Stiles. Now, I'll be perfectly honest. After seeing the first episode, which was called Black November, I wanted to be Buzz Murdoch, but I probably had more in common with Todd Stiles.
Okay, I'll buy that.
But George Maharis, who's on the phone with us now, brought an intensity to that character of Buzz Murdoch. And look, Buzz, he made his point, and if he had to pop someone in the mouth on occasion to make that point, he would do it. Such an honor to have Mr. Maharis with us. Thank you so much for chatting with us today.
Listen, it's my pleasure.
I know that you started on the stage. In fact, I believe you're a local guy, having lived in Queens.
Yeah, I was born actually in Astoria, and I did what they call the off-Broadway movement. This is before there was even an OB.
Right.
And one of the first things I did was a thing called Death Watch, which was with Vic Morrow and one other person, I think it was a four-character thing on Theater East, which was right off of 2nd Avenue. And the second thing I did was Zoo Story, which was Edward Albee play, which is a two-character thing down in the Village.
I see. At some point, word of you must have gotten back to Otto Preminger's people because you were cast in Exodus.
Well, they came to see Death Watch,
mm-hmm.
and they loved me in the show, and they wanted me to meet Otto, and Otto said, take one of these parts. Which one do you want? I said, okay. So I read the script, and I said, I'll take this one, and that's the one I did. And when we were in Israel, somebody asked him about the fact that if he was going to go to Crete, that would be okay because I was a Greek. And he said, oh, I thought he was a Jew. Funny man.
Otto Preminger presents Exodus, the biggest bestseller since Gone with the Wind, read by more than 50 million around the world. Now on the screen, an epic of our time, the birth of a nation. Exodus.
I got to give Otto Preminger a lot of credit because he made certain deals with the Israeli government. They wanted to look at his rushes, and he said, nobody looks at my rushes. And they kind of threatened him, and he said, if you threaten me and force me to do that, I'll take the whole production, reshoot it on Crete. And they figured he meant it, so they let him go.
Well, he had that clout, that's for sure.
He not only had that clout, but he knew what he had to do, and he wasn't going to sell himself short.
Now, Route 66, if I'm not mistaken, began as sort of a backdoor pilot on The Naked City.
Correct.
Now, that's Herbert Leonard's other show.
Well, the other show that he was doing at that port was, right, Naked City was a half-hour show. And they came to see Vic Morrow in Death Watch, and I think it was Marion Dougherty, I'm not sure. But she said to Bert, look at the other guy there, and that was me, and they liked me, so they gave me a part in a thing called Fire Island with Will Kaluuya, and we did that. They gave me a second one. They gave me a third one. Then they decided they liked what they saw, so they would try to form a series around me. There was another guy called, which was also in a Naked City, called Four Sweet Corners. His name was Bobby, I think his last name was Morris, Morris, and he was supposed to be my partner, but he died, young guy. So he died, so then they went on a long search for who to get. They found Marty, told him he had to lose some weight, and the rest is history.
That's done it. The steering's gone. That's what it feels like. Let's take a look.
This here's private property. Why you come down that road?
We're looking for a shortcut to Biloxi. We had the accident, not you. It's not our fault your bridge didn't hold.
Well, then maybe this'll just teach you a lesson, huh?
We don't need a lesson. We need a garage. Is there one in town?
It ain't open.
That is the town of Garth.
Forget that name, boy. Just forget it.
Look, all we want is a mechanic.
What time you got?
3:18.
I'm going along to the mill now. I'll be back around 4. Now, you get that, and both your tails out of here the same way you come in, 'fore I gets back.
Now, when you were doing the pilot episode on The Naked City, did Herbert Leonard explain to you the concept for the show, that it was going to be so ambitious as to actually be filmed on location across America?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Now, that was Bert. You know, Bert was very adventurous, and, of course, Sterling was a brilliant writer. So, yeah, sure, that didn't bother me at all. I know it must have been tough for other people who were married on the set, you know, who had a family, because we were always on the road. And, of course, in those days, we made like 33 shows a year. Not like they do today, where they make, 16, 18?
Yeah, that's it, yeah.
So it was very rough, and we were always behind schedule. We were working 7 days a week. But I loved it. It was great fun.
With that kind of a schedule and making that many episodes a season, did you have any time to enjoy the success of the show when it took off?
No, we never saw that. We were working, and the show was on the air Friday night, and we were on the set when the show was on. I didn't see the show, actually, until a year after it folded.
You know, I wanted to ask you about someone you worked with on Route 66, and she was also in The Satan Bug, and one of my favorite actresses, Anne Francis.
Yeah, I know. She did the thing where she came to Butte, Montana to die.
Yeah, yeah. And you had to run the gamut on that.
Month of Sundays.
Month of Sundays. That was the second season premiere.
Yeah, she was terrific. She was not the first girl in that role.
In Satan Bug.
Yeah. It was, I can't remember her name now. And she was there for like 2 or 3 weeks. And for some reason or other, good actress, some reason or other, Sturgis couldn't get along with her. So he finally decided to reshoot, brought Anne Francis in. He was trying to do 2 pictures at once at that time. He was also doing the Hallelujah Trail with Bert. Actually, the original script of Satan Bug was more like a James Bond thing.
Right.
And when Kennedy got shot, they changed it. I thought the original script was better.
I'm George Maharis, and this is the Satan Bug. It's kept in there, beyond those doors. But you can't get in. It's top secret. What the hell are you doing here?
I'm using a new strategy, darling. I thought you might like the Mata Hari type.
Do you have a favorite episode of Route 66?
Well, I have a few that I like a lot. I like the one in the hospital at with the paraplegics, City of Wheels.
Yeah. Yep.
I like the one with Anne Francis. I love the one with Susan Plachette, which was Strengthening Angels.
Yes.
And I love the one where I go temporarily blind. Even stones have eyes. And there was one that was really a lot of fun with Joey Brown and Buster Keaton.
Strengthening Angels. I remember that the sheriff of the town beats the hell out of you. Yeah.
Right. He thinks Susan Plachette killed his brother, but it's all not
right. Yeah. You know, I think the episode The Mud Nest has members of your family. Yeah.
Yeah, my real sister and my younger brother was in it, who was like 18 years younger than I. And, of course, my older brother was with me from the beginning of the show. He was on the other end of the camera, Harold. I beat all of them up.
That's what you
I
did.
love to watch that show just for that reason.
You show it to them if they get out of line.
Oh, I do.
Yeah.
It's like seeing you in the mirror.
Now, you just asked that question again.
I'll take this one. No, you just wait there outside.
You're Dorothea's kid, all right. There ain't nobody could be so mean or fight so hard.
In terms of acting styles, and I think one of the reasons that the show kind of limped to a finale when you left was it's just the contrast between you and Martin Milner.
It's enormous, and that's the way it should have been.
Yeah.
And when they got Glenn Corbett, you know, they dressed him like I dressed, they combed his hair like I dressed, and according to some of the directors, they would call up the director and say, show him what George did. And the director would say, I don't know what George did. You know, but, yeah, he was too much like Marty.
Yeah.
You know, he was a nice guy, but kind of upper middle class as Marty was. And I was really a street urchin.
Yeah, that's something I wanted to get into because, as most people know, you left the series towards the end, and they replaced you with Glenn Corbett. And there's all this speculation that you left the show because you wanted a movie career, you didn't want to do TV anymore, and of course it's...
Well, because I got ill the first time around.
Yeah.
We were in Houston, we were in Texas, and I had to go in the water and get... the lady was a thing called Even Stones Have Eyes, Barbara Barry. No, was it Barbara Barry? No,
yeah.
It wasn't Barbara Barry. Anyway, she's in the water. She has a wetsuit on, and she's got a trench coat over it. Now, they had to match what I had on, which was a jacket and slacks. Well, they couldn't. They put me in a wetsuit, couldn't get the slacks over it, couldn't get the jacket over it. Now, they were in a panic because it was like 3 o'clock in the morning, and they had like 2 or 3 more shots, and they had to do it because they were moving the whole company to the next location. So they asked me if I would do it without the wetsuit, which I did. The water was like 40 degrees.
Right.
You know, and when they pulled me out of the water and we got the last shot, my jacket actually froze on me. So they poured some hot water on me, and we did the last scene. And then, of course, I started to feel not too well as we were going across the country. And, of course, when we got to Catalina, I felt awful. And, of course, in Catalina at that point, the whole place is shut down in the wintertime. Nobody's there. So after the show was finished, we completed the show. They took me from there straight to their doctor, a guy named Kozacek in Santa Monica, and he took me from his office straight to the hospital. They determined that I had hepatitis, and they figured that when I was in Texas, that they sent a doctor into my room after shooting, which was like 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning, and he gave me a shot of B12, and there it was. Is what the insurance company told me.
Right. I'm glad you're explaining this because it's amazing the story keeps circulating. George Maharis left the show because he didn't want to do TV anymore. He hated Marty Milner, and
I never hated Marty Milner. I did not want to leave the show. It was a losing battle both for me and for Bert. Bert had to make sure that I was on the screen a lot, because CBS said, if he's just going to be token, we're going to drop the series. Now, he never told me that, but I understood it.
Right.
And, of course, the hours, when you're working 80, 85, 90 hours a week, it starts to wear on you. I was getting sicker, and, of course, I had a relapse.
Right.
Now, why they went the way they did and did what they did was, I don't understand. But ask anybody on the set, ask anybody who ever knew Marty or I, whether they had ever seen him and I ever have an argument. The answer is no.
Right.
As a matter of fact, it was Marty who put me onto the company and said, watch your hours because they cheat you. And I said, what do you mean? He said, clock your hours, which is what I did. He was the one that put me onto that. I didn't realize that. But yeah, it was unfortunate. If I had to change anything in my life, it would be that.
Well, what can you do? You've got to have your health. I mean, the show...
Well, I spent 3 years recuperating it.
Yeah.
And then I started doing smaller things on television. Then I went and did a motion picture called The Satan Bug. And then I made another one with Carol Baker called Sylvia. And then I made one with Bobby Morse, Quick Before It Melts.
Right.
And then I went to Europe and did some stuff back and forth, and that's the way it went.
I know that you had another series in 1970, Most Deadly Game.
Yeah, that was originally started with Inga Stevens and Ralph Bellamy. And, of course, first day of shooting, she committed suicide.
Holy mackerel.
So we had to shut down. Then they looked around. Then they got Yvette Mimieux. And then there was a strike of the writers, and it was just ill-fated.
Wow. You know, I think one of the TV appearances of yours that gets rerun a lot is the Night Gallery you did.
Ah.
That was just...
I did 2 or 3 of them.
Yeah.
About the hand?
The hands, yeah.
Oh, right.
Right.
I've tried to sell that hand. Nobody wants to buy it.
That was a heck of a story. Well, what do you... Yeah,
I think it was... who was the star? Ray Milland, I think.
Yeah.
It was Ray Milland. Nice man. He was the one that told me the chitlins. Did you ever hear of chitlins?
No.
What chitlins is where they take the intestines of pigs and they deep fry them. I always thought that was a southern dish. He said, no, they used to do it in Wales when he was a kid.
Holy mackerel. I understand these days you're painting.
Yeah, I paint a lot. I love it. I love it. It's the only art form that I can think of where you do exactly where you want, and if people don't like it, you say, fine, pass. Whereas if you're an actor, you have the other actors, you have the producer, you have the code, you have the television, you have the network. And, you know, in those days, we couldn't even say the word pregnant. I don't know whether you remember the one with Arlene Sachs, where she's pregnant.
Right.
She's an Indian girl.
Yeah.
And Robert Duvall was in that also. And the father takes the girl, and she escapes, and, of course, we help her. She has the baby and dies. But, yeah, you know, we couldn't say any of that stuff. Couldn't say she was pregnant, Very strange.
But when you paint, and as Jim Rosen explained it, you paint. It's an impressionist style.
Yeah, impressionist, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to paint a tree better than some of the old masters did, from the standpoint of it looking exactly like a tree.
Right.
But if you look at the difference between a Cézanne's tree and a Matisse tree and a Van Gogh tree, they're all trees, but they're all different because it's the way they see it. And you get a chance to express what you want in color, in form, in design. It's great fun. I love it.
So you've always had that desire to create.
Oh, yeah.
Led to acting and, sure, now in painting as well.
Yeah. When I was a kid, I remember when I was 8 or 9 or 10, I tried to buy a piano, you know, and it was an ugly piano, and my mother said, you can't bring that thing in the house. That was the end of that.
Well, you had a legit interest in music and a great singing voice and had a recording career and a top 40 hit.
Which one are you talking about?
Teach Me Tonight.
Oh, Teach Me Tonight,
yeah.
Correct.
Just very quickly.
I was in the hospital in Santa Monica, and I turned the television set on, and there it was on the Dick Clark Show with a bullet.
There it is.
And I thought, God, this is strange.
Well, you must have always loved singing. Wasn't that the first thing you wanted to do?
Yeah, it was it was the first thing you could do because you didn't have to buy any piano, you didn't have to buy a saxophone, you didn't have to buy a harmonica, nothing. You know, you just opened your mouth, you sang. And I used to go around and ask small bands if I could sing with them. I didn't want any pay, I just wanted to practice. And I said, sure.
Well, you know, they're good records. I mean, look at your work. You're working with Don Costa.
Oh, good people.
Oh, incredible stuff.
Yeah, good people.
Now, I have a favor that I need to ask you.
Okay.
My mother was a big fan of yours, and she would write letters to, I guess, CBS, and all they would do was send back form letters and 8x10.
Yeah, because we were on the road.
Of course. So if I could just get you to say hello to her, then she would have felt that she'd accomplished something by having you actually acknowledge her. Her name is Joy.
What is it?
Joy.
Where is she?
Well, she's not here with me, but I'll play the interview for her so she can hear it.
Tell Joy I did send her a letter once or twice. Some of the responses were a little risque, so they wouldn't let me send any more. But tell her, anytime.
I think my mother, I can guarantee you she'll probably faint when she hears that.
Oh, that's very sweet.
Well, you had a heck of a life, George, I should say you're having a heck of a life.
I'm certainly glad you said that. I was looking around to see if I was dropping dead in the next second.
I want to thank you so much for spending some time with us.
My pleasure.